Welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we bring you the latest updates and breaking news from around the world.
Rishi Sunak's government is set to emphasize anti-green policies in the upcoming King's Speech, aiming to create a stark contrast with Labour over environmental concerns, according to sources familiar with the matter. Insiders in the energy industry and senior figures in Whitehall anticipate that the government will introduce legislation to establish an annual system for awarding oil and gas licenses, despite the UK's commitments to move away from fossil fuels and achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The King's Speech, which outlines the final legislative programme before the next general election, is expected to feature measures favouring motorists, such as making it more challenging for local authorities to implement 20 miles per hour speed limits, and unpopular initiatives like the Ultra-Low Emission Zone, ULEZ. Recently expanded in London. Additionally, the government is likely to introduce tougher sentencing for serious crimes, including rape, and explore options for renting prison space abroad to address prison overcrowding. Facing a significant deficit in the polls compared to the Labour Party, Sunak made a major policy reversal in September, delaying the deadline for the sale of new petrol and diesel cars and the phasing out of gas boilers. This move aimed to alleviate concerns that green policies would increase the cost of living. However, since this policy shift and the cancellation of the Birmingham to Manchester leg of HS2, the Conservative Party has failed to make substantial progress in the polls. Despite this setback, Whitehall insiders and the energy industry suggest that Sunak intends to double down on his anti-green stance in hopes of creating divisive political issues with Labour. Labour anticipates that the King's Speech will include bills introduced for political reasons rather than genuine necessity. These bills are expected to be used to challenge the opposition by asking if they dare oppose them. Environmental activists argue that granting additional oil and gas exploration licenses is irresponsible in the face of the climate crisis and that new laws are unnecessary for this purpose. The government's claim that issuing more licenses will enhance the UK's energy security, reduce emissions from imports, and protect jobs is disputed. Critics point to data from Uplift, an NGO supporting the transition from fossil fuel production, showing that over 13 years of North Sea licensing under the Tories, only minimal amounts of gas, equivalent to just 9 weeks of national consumption, have been discovered. Only half of the 12 newly discovered fields have begun production. The remaining fields have not significantly increased the UK's gas reserves. Tessa Khan, executive director of Uplift, argues that the government should focus on a coherent plan for securing an affordable and reliable power supply rather than playing political games with energy policy. Khan notes that millions of households in the UK struggle to afford heating in winter, and energy costs are likely to remain high throughout the decade. The government's energy policies should prioritise the well-being of the population over political manoeuvring.